If you've been soloing for a while, but you're still playing one minor pentatonic scale over an entire 12-bar blues, well, that's normal, and it works to a point. But after a while, your solos all start to sound the same. But listen what happens when I make one simple mental shift. Instead of treating an entire blues like it's one chord, I'm going to treat each chord like its own musical event. That was the same key, same basic vocabulary, but suddenly the solo sounds like it's following the chord changes. Now, before you come at me with, well, Albert King only used one scale and he only played about 7 different licks. Well, that's true, but you're not Albert King. He could take that limited harmonic information and using phrases, he made it say about 1,000 different things. But most of us mortals, we need to use more variety in the notes we play. Today, I'm going to show you the one mental shift that helps you do exactly that, plus a whole bunch of awesome sounding tricks we can do once we make that shift. So grab your guitar, let's get into it. So here's the shift. Stop thinking in scales. Start thinking in intervals, and then apply that thinking to every chord in the progression. See, when we think in scales, our brain defaults to set patterns that we've learned. And what we play reflects that. It comes out stiff and repetitive with licks that sound like scale practice. The blues, it should be more conversational and intentional. And thinking in intervals lets us play like that. Instead of noodling random licks because we don't know what else to do, we start making deliberate musical choices because we know now what the 6th or the 9th sounds like when we add it to a minor pentatonic. How simply moving from the minor third to the major third changes the entire mood of a lick. A chord change, it stops being an obstacle and becomes a new route to build something off of. So the typical 12-bar blues is made up of 3 dominant 7 chords, the dominant 7 of the root, the 4th, and the 5th notes of the scale. So in the key of C, that would be C7, F7, and G7. Now, over any dominant 7 chord, there are 2 notes that tell your ear exactly what chord you're on, the major third and the flat 7. We call those 2 intervals guide tones, and everything else, it's pretty much decoration. Check out this little voicing of C7 in the 8th position with the root, the flat 7, and the major third. And right here next to it is the same voicing of F7 with the root, major third, and flat 7. Move that up 2 frets, and we've got G7 at the 9th position. Those 3 voicings are great for blues comping, by the way. And for soloing purposes, it's handy that we find these notes in such close proximity. Here they are for C7, drop down 1 fret for F7, and notice the order is flipped. With C7, we had the major third and the flat 7. For F7, we've got the flat 7 and the major third. Then we move that up 2 frets, and we've got those 2 notes for G7. So here's the first exercise to start ingraining our shift. As each chord goes by, play its third and flat 7. And that's it. As long as you're doing it in time and making it sound musical. No scale runs, no licks. Just target those 2 notes as the chords change. Now notice what happened. Same rhythmic idea, same basic shape, but because the target notes moved with the chord, your ears hear it following the changes. Now here's the part that can make this way more useful. Don't just learn these intervals in one spot. Find the third and flat 7 of each chord all over the neck. Different strings, different octaves, different positions. Until you're not thinking about just a shape anymore, you're starting to hear, there's the third, there's the flat 7, wherever your hand happens to be. For instance, the major third and flat 7 of C, well, we said they're E and B flat. And on the E and B strings alone, we can find them at the frets 18 and 17. There's B flat and E. And then we've got E and B flat at frets 12 and 11. B flat and E at frets 6 and 5. And lastly, we've got open E, and there's a B flat at the 3rd fret of the G string. I want you to find those everywhere you can on the guitar, and that's going to take a little bit of practice. I really encourage you to spend some time with that, because everything we build from here, triads, arpeggios, pentatonic switching, it's just more color stacked on top of this foundation. So if you find yourself feeling a little shaky with your theory knowledge and your understanding of fundamental concepts like triads or all the pentatonic patterns, I've got a great course available called the Lead Guitar Roadmap. We do a deep dive into all kinds of lead guitar concepts with explanations, examples, and exercises. And I don't just tell you to memorize a bunch of stuff. I show you how to use it with loads of example licks and even full solos. If you're ready to take a big leap forward in your playing, link is in the description below. And as always, I appreciate your support. So we've got the heart of the chords with our guide tones, and we learned a couple of cool shapes to play rhythm with. Where do we go from here? Well, let's check out another concept using 3-note chords. It's a blues cliche that I hear used all the time for rhythm playing. But we can break it down and get some awesome ideas how to use those same notes in our solos. It's using the triad of the relative minor of the 1 chord and then walking that down to the minor triad of the 5th of the 1 chord. I'm sure you've heard this kind of thing 1,000 times. So over C7, we're playing A minor, A flat minor, and G minor. Over F7, we would play D minor, D flat minor, and C minor. And then over G, we would play E minor, E flat minor, and D minor. So why does this work? Well, over C7, A minor is pretty easy to understand because it's got the notes A, C, and E. And A is the 6th of C, and of course C and E, well, they're chord tones of C major, the root and the major third. Let's not worry about A flat minor, those are just passing tones, but what about G minor? How does that work over a C7 chord? Well, G minor has the notes G, B flat, and D. G is the 5th of C, B flat, well, we know that's the flat 7, and D is the 2nd or the 9th. So that gives us the root, the 2nd, the major third, the 5th, the 6th, and the flat 7. 6 of the 7 notes of the Mixolydian mode, which is the mode of the major scale that works best over dominant 7 chords. So check this out. Stevie Ray Vaughan was the first person I heard play this idea. Let's use the A minor, A flat minor, and G minor voicings on the E, B, and G strings, starting with A minor at the 5th fret. And we're going to play chromatically down each string, and it sounds like this. Pretty cool sound. We're mixing all the chord tones, color notes, and chromatic passing tones. Now dig this. We can take that all the way up the fretboard using triad inversions, starting with this A minor shape at the 8th position. We just have to be careful to outline the shape of all 3 triads and move accordingly. Then we've got A minor at the 12th position with this shape, And once again, we can play our lick. We can even go back to the A minor at the 5th position and play it in multiple octaves like this. And because we've got this crazy mix of chord tones, color notes, and chromaticism, we can make up licks combining a pattern using just the 1st and 3rd note on each string, with the next pattern up the fretboard playing all 9 notes. And of course, we can do this over all 3 chords. The same relative minor to the 5th minor walk down works over F7 and G7 too. You just have to transpose the shapes to a new root. So while we were turning triad shapes into licks, I mentioned a couple of very important intervals, the 6th and the 9th. What we're going to do next is inject those intervals into the good old minor pentatonic, along with the major 3rd, and that's going to allow us to create a really crazy extended pentatonic scale. And we can use it to make up all kinds of blues licks. What this does, it allows us to be more selective with the notes we choose, as opposed to just running the minor pentatonic scales, because we've got more colors to play with. If we start the C minor pentatonic scale on the flat 7 or B flat on the D string, we get B flat, C, E flat, F, G, B flat, C, and E flat. But with our new extended scale, we get B flat, B, C, E flat, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, and E. With good old C minor pentatonic, we might play a blues lick like this one with the notes G, B flat, C, E flat, F, E flat, C, G, B flat, and C. And that's a fine lick, there's nothing wrong with it. But compare that to playing G, B flat, C, E flat, D or the 9th, C, E flat, E, F, E flat and E, C, B flat, G, and an A, the 6th, and then walking down G, F, E flat, E, C, and B flat. Smooth that out. It just sounds so much more snaky and slithery than the basic pentatonic lick. We can play simpler licks too. The 6th and 9th intervals always sort of sound to me like they're asking a question, one that we get to answer with whatever we decide to play next. Let me play a couple of example licks over a medium tempo shuffle. I'll accentuate that 6th or the 9th and then play out of it. Have a listen. Just like all the other examples we've done so far, this doesn't just work over C7 or the root. Whatever chord we're on, the extended pentatonic moves with it. Same shape, new root. So we've already got several new tools to make our blues playing sound more sophisticated and intentional, but I don't think any lesson on breaking out a minor pentatonic would be complete without talking about the major-minor shift. Shifting back and forth and combining major pentatonic and minor pentatonic. The easiest way to accomplish this is what I call the 3-fret rule. You can take any minor pentatonic pattern or lick and drop it down 3 frets, and it becomes major. Let's not worry about the theory today, let's just do some playing. An easy way to practice this and start getting used to the concept, we're going to start playing the C major pentatonic pattern 5 in the 5th position, this shape. we're going to ascend 3 strings and then shift up to C minor pentatonic, pattern 1 at the 8th position, and descend those same 3 strings. Notice the fingering was exactly the same, they're just 3 frets apart. We're going to shift back down to the 5th position and ascend the A, D, and G strings. Shift up to the 8th position and descend. And we would continue all the way through the patterns, and it would sound like this. Another way to practice it would be to stay in one position and play both major and minor in that position. For instance, in the 5th position, we could ascend pattern 5 of C major pentatonic, and then descend pattern 5 of C minor pentatonic. We could jump up to the 8th position, we could ascend C minor pattern 1, and then descend C major pattern 1. Do that through all the patterns, all the way up and down the fretboard, and you're preparing yourself to play licks like this one. I'm going to start off major, shift to minor, shift back to major briefly, and finish things off with a minor blues lick that's pretty recognizable. Check this out. Same deal here. It works over all 3 chords. When we shift to F7, we would use the pair of F major pentatonic, F minor pentatonic, although I prefer to just play major pentatonic over the 4 chord. That's your choice. And then over G7, we would use G major and G minor pentatonic. So that 3 fret rule, it travels with the chords, just like all the other concepts we've talked about. So there it is, 4 different ways to stop thinking in scales, start thinking in intervals, and to apply it to each chord in the progression. Guide tones, triads, extended pentatonics, and the major minor shift. Different tools, but the same idea underneath all of them. You're not just running patterns anymore, you're responding to each chord now. If this clicked for you and you think it's going to help your playing, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications. I make a video like this every week. I sincerely want to help you with your guitar playing, so I don't want you to miss one. Work hard, have fun with that guitar. I'll see you next week. Bye.